Over 99% of people using Claude like a junior developer only speaks when they're spoken to. They type a prompt, ask for a script, and Claude executes. So it's purely transactional relationship. A smaller function of the people on the other side have realized that they can also use it for planning, asking the model to break down the problem before actually writing the code. But only less than 1% of the people are using the LLM for iterative provisioning. If you're just executing, you will hit the wall. Your context window will bloat, your tools will collide, and your agent will start to hallucinate. In this video, I'm going to show you how to break down out of this trap. I'm going to build a scalable, adjustable architecture for coding with Claude or any other LLM of your choice. I'm going to break this down into 3 core concepts: the 5 levels of interaction, the context engine, and the execution arsenal. If you have been in AI space long enough, you start to see the pattern. Over the past 10 years, moving from the research academic to designing MLOps frameworks and a scalable solution for big tech companies, and recently starting my own AI startup, I realized that it is not about better prompt. It is also not about the context. It is about scaffolding. So let's dive right into it. On the first part, I'm going to talk about the 5 levels of LLM interaction. Think of it as your maturity model. On level 1 is the execution only. So this is the basic chat mode. You ask for the code, you get the code. It relies entirely on the brain of the model and heavy lifting of the system. On the level 2, you are going to do planning and then execution. This is where you split the cognitive load. And surprisingly, you spend 80% of the time on collaboratively designing high-tier reasoning with the model and step-by-step architecturing the planning part, and then you actually have the other part of the execution, which is the simple part. So once the plan is solid, you pass it to the execution. Sometimes the LLM internal weights aren't enough, so you need to spin up a temporary research agent to scrap the web or actually gather required information, and then you feed it to the plan. On level 3, introduce the testing after the execution. It can be as simple as test it before giving me the result, or you actually write the specific test cases to define the expected behavior for yourself. So here's a secret sauce. You don't want to use the same agent to test the code that the one who wrote it. LLMs suffer massively from confirmation bias. If you write a function, it will tell you that the function is brilliant. So you need to spin up a completely separate agent, for example a QA persona, and the job is only to deeply critique and provide the security flaws, nuanced edge cases. We will talk about the agents shortly, so make sure to still until the end of the video. On level 4, we define human in the loop after the test. This is not about micromanaging the syntax, it's about the domain expertise. So you design the workflow to actually pause on the critical juncture. So for example, you want to push it into production, or you actually want to look at the overarching design, you want to inject the personal styling or branding, or you want to do some sense of human testing, and you want to prevent the model from derailing into some infinite expensive loop. Level 5, iterative provisioning. I don't see lots of people actually talk about this. Maybe they do it under the hood, but they don't share it with others. But this is the holy grail. At this level, the system is not solving the downstream task. It is actually actively evaluating your pipeline or the workflow. It looks at the blind spots, so what you didn't consider, and it's upgrade the own context based on what it learns. So it scaffolds the entire workflow for you and update it and scale it based on the difficulties or the problems that you have. Personally, I found level 5 essential essential for writing the high quality production code in complex systems. But in order to achieve level 5, you need to master the second concept, which is the context engine. The fastest way to kill LLM performance is contextual, which we talked a lot in this channel about it. You dump a massive code base into the prompt and the model loses its mind. So you need to use something that Claude talked about, which is progressive disclosure. You need a persistent memory spread across different files. The first one is the blueprint. So you can look at it as the Bible of your project. It defines the success criteria, the hierarchy, and the absolute must-dos, and the one that should never touch. So at the same time, you should make it flexible because you want to harness the model. You don't want to trap it. On the next part, we have the progress.md. So this is actually very important because LLM are highly motivated to finish a task, which means that they will rush to conclusion and skip some steps. So a progress file will actually force the model to document its status and exactly show what are the step-by-step, and the success criteria will be defined by finishing each step rather than coming up into the final conclusion. There are two other files that I think sometimes you can use. The first one is spec.md. That's where you define the product requirement and a specification of what needs to be done there. There are some cases that you can basically implement them. I will talk about them. And the other one is personalization, or basically where you define your style, or for example you define what kind of look you want your website to have. Stay away from the AI slop. The most important file is the Claude.md, which acts as the operating system of the session. The most important part of this file is the gotcha section. We discussed in previous video, I put the link at the end of the video, that we need negative reinforcement. That is a lot more informative than confirming. So during a session, when there are some repetitive issues or problems that causes, you want to put them in the gotcha section of the Claude.md so it never happen again. After knowing the different level of communicating with Claude, and then after that the importance of having persistent file, a very valid question in here would be, how would I be able to actually communicate and implement these things? Where can I learn the skills required for that? And there is good news for that, which is basically brings us to the third part of the video, or the execution arsenal. You actually don't need a massive monolithic agent. You need three different portions that actually help you to execute them: the skills, MCPs or connectors, and the special agents. So I will go over them one by one. First one is the skills. As we talked previously in the channel, skills are environment for repeated tasks. So for example, one good skill that you can define based on the progress.md file is basically the next stage skill. This is basically very important when you are writing a code session and you want to run the skills. What it does is that it's basically try to read the progress.md and update any documentation and try to ensure that there is no stale documents there. Basically provide you what is the reasonable next steps for you. On the next one, we have the MCPs, or in Claude we have the connectors. So these concepts we already familiar. If not, I've put the link of the video so you can go and watch. What the whole concept is that you want to minimize your token limits for the API calls. So if Claude is actually trying to do some task, if you can basically offload everything to Claude, but you want to actually use some other things, for example, you can write your own Python code to actually do some of the tasks. So this this will actually handle the execution for you, so it will reduce the token count. And finally, we have the specialized agents. So the agents are used only for context isolation. If you want to do a code review, Claude has its own review agent. Now you want it to be done on a separate agent because of the confirmation bias, as we said. So you want to spin up a temporary agent, get the output, and immediately kill the agent and all of the context associated with it. And so you get the value out of it and carry out basically the conversation baggage into the main workflow. And then how you will do any of this, basically you can do simply by asking the Claude to do that. So ask it to create a new skill, create a new agent. If you structure your project like this, moving through the file level, managing the context with a strict documentation, and offloading the execution in isolated tool, you basically stop fighting the LLM and you stop being the 99% who actually just type the command into the chatbot and say that, oh, we cannot execute the task. As a token of appreciation for the ones who watch until the end, I want to say that I have the template starter kit for all of the things that we discussed in here, and you can basically use that in order to create your next project. It will facilitate lots of these things that I discussed, and I will put the link in here. You just go and put your email and then I will send that over to you. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to like it. This helps me to understand what type of video you guys enjoy so I can make more videos on this, and make sure to subscribe to the channel because there are so many videos and you don't want to lose the good information that can be helpful for you. If you enjoyed this video, I think you also like this one that I talk about the things that Tariq, builder in Anthropic, learn on how to create the skills, or you can watch this one that I talk about MCPs and how you can use it in order to improve your connectivity to others. Thanks for watching and see you until the next one.